For women in the corporate world, where the climb to the C-suite can seem like a journey that is walked alone, Katy McPhee, CEO of Insights to Action, is a woman on a mission. With a corporate career that landed her in an EVP role in tech, Katy's path was, you guessed it, not always smooth sailing. We talk about the mindset challenges and the often overlooked perception problem that hinders progress. You will hear her insights as she unravels the complexities of why women find themselves in these career plateaus. And the best part, she provides actionable strategies for breaking free. But the story doesn't end there. From her view in the executive suite, Katy makes a pivotal career change and now empowers women in their career journeys, demystifying the path to senior leadership. This episode is jam-packed with actionable insights and tangible tactics that you can use to accelerate your climb. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, because you're going to want to take notes. You are listening to the podcast From Now to Next, the podcast that empowers women to get seen, get heard, and get promoted. I'm your host, Erica Rooney, and I've made it my mission to help you break free from the sticky floors, those limiting beliefs and toxic behaviors, to bust through the glass ceiling. I'm obsessed with all things growth and abundance, and I'm here to talk you through the tried and true secrets to get you to level up your career and your life. We talk about the hard stuff here: imposter syndrome, perfectionism, fear, and burnout. So pull up a seat, pop in an earbud, and let's dive in. Katy, welcome to the podcast From Now to Next. I am so thrilled that you were able to create some time for me today. How are you?
I am great, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Let's dive in. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Who is Katy?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO at Insights to Action. It's a company on a mission to help more women get to the exec suite and thrive as senior leaders. Prior to that, I had an 18-year corporate career. So I did finally end up becoming a VP and an EVP in the tech space, but I really struggled with my, journey going from manager to director to VP. And what I noticed when I got there was a couple things. One was, wow, I thought that everyone here was like magical unicorns until I got here, and they are just regular people like us. But secondly, I saw so many women and men get stuck in those same spots. And so ultimately, I decided to leave my corporate career, start my company where now I can help other women, break glass ceilings and teach them all of the lessons that I learned through my corporate career.
I love it. You are my Canadian counterpart here. This is perfect. So I've got just a question for you to kick it off. Why do people get stuck?
Yeah, I think it's two main things where we are keeping ourselves stuck. Right. And so I'm not talking about external factors, which might be bias or might be opportunity, but ways that we keep ourselves stuck. There's two. One is our mindset. The other is what I call the perception problem. So the mindset piece is, you're too afraid to raise your hand and share your great idea. You're not showing up as your full authentic self. You're not challenging your manager when you need to. You're not really taking that command, right? All of these things that are often rooted in fear, in limiting beliefs, all of that stuff. On the flip side, there's what I call the perception problem, which is you feel like you're ready and your boss isn't seeing it. And that can be, being stuck in the weeds, stuck in the doing, feeling like our value is in getting shit done. And so not making that sort of transition into more strategic activities, not changing our communication style to ensure that we are, communicating effectively with VPs and C-suite execs, which is a little bit of a different skill. And I think it's one that is not talked about enough, and it's certainly not taught from where I've sat. And so that's a big part of what I do, is try to break that stuff down in a really tangible way, because it is all learnable.
I love it. And this is going to lead me to my next question, because it's come up twice for me this week. And I've had two different women come to me that have gotten feedback on their voice, right? And not just like, oh, maybe they have up talk and it comes up at the end, but their actual voice. And they're like, what am I supposed to do? Speak deeper?
Oh,
You tell women who are getting this feedback that,
yeah.
we can't take you seriously because of your voice.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be some bias that exists. To me, if someone's saying it is your actual tone of voice, the thing that I always recommend to people do, if you get feedback like that, I'm like, lean into curiosity, right? We can go to the place of fear. We can go to the place of not enough or anger or whatever. But I'm like, lean into curiosity and say, okay, this is my natural speaking voice. Help me understand what you're recommending specifically. Like, so that we're clear, are you recommending that I speak in a different voice? It's entirely possible that they're saying it's your voice. It could be the way this person's presenting themselves and their voice is what they're pulling out. But I mean, I get it. I get it because we know, if you think about, if you recall, like Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos
Yes.
speaking in a deeper tone, I don't think that was an accident, right? There is an element of when you, if you have a high voice and I, I don't like, I feel like my voice is a little bit on the lower side, which I used to be mortified by, but now I'm like, yeah, maybe it served me. I don't know. Um, then that is something that it's almost like you just need to be aware of. I remember starting my career, I was like 24. I looked young and I was in biotech. And I knew that people weren't going to automatically take me seriously. It was the hard truth I had to admit to myself. Like, based on my appearance, people were not going to automatically assign credibility to what I was sharing in a very technical space. And so I did things to help them take me more seriously. Like, I knew my stuff cold. I always knew my stuff cold so that no one could question my knowledge. But I also, like, I wore my hair back. I didn't wear big jewelry. I dressed more conservatively. And when I think back, I'm like, it's too bad. Like, I wasn't really letting my full authentic self shine because I was so afraid of that. And so I don't necessarily think that people should go all the way where I did, right? Like, I think I think we want to still be authentic to who we are. But I think that being honest with yourself about, like, how am I being perceived today? And am I bringing, like, my best self forward? Am I acting in a way that's, like, credible and strategic and, quote, senior? And what can I do to impact that?
I talk a lot with people about the importance of perception, right? And impact, right? Intent versus impact, and how then perception plays into that, because it's true. And especially, like you said, entering the workforce at 24, looking young, actually being young and being in the
Mhm.
workforce, there's a lot of people who will just kind of wave you off like she doesn't know what she's talking about. She has no experience, and they don't, like you said, automatically assign this credibility. I love how you phrased that. What is another hard truth that you learned in corporate America, especially about being a woman?
Hmm. So I would say this is one that I learned, and it surprised me a little bit, but I would say two, like, they're kind of two things combined. One, I believe women have to be better than their male counterparts to get that same level, right? I think that, like, if you see a man and a woman at a VP level, generally speaking, that woman is actually, like, leveled up a little bit because it is that much harder for us to get there. The second thing is, I feel that the expectations of women are higher at the exec level. And so by that, I mean, a woman's going to be more likely to be let go if she's not performing compared to her male counterpart who's perhaps not performing at that same level. The expectations of her are just going to be higher. And this is, again, something that I saw during my career, and it surprised me a little bit. Like, I hadn't actually expected that, but I sort of saw it over and over, where it's like the women at the exec levels were almost expected to be, like, perfect. We're expected to be unicorns. Whereas the men at the exec levels were just expected to perform as men at the exec level, right?
Yeah, well, there's been actually a lot of studies out there where it has shown that men don't have to prove their expertise or
Mhm.
their, authority or their respect, right? Women have to perform consistently time after time after time in order to get that same level
Mhm.
of respect in the workplace. So it's not that you just saw it, it's that that's like factual all over the place. So I love that because we tell our children and we tell so many people like show up, be authentic, be your true self. That's the lesson that we teach them throughout life. But then we get into this corporate world and it is a totally different game, especially for women, because the bar is set higher for us, right? It is not a level playing field. And so we have to play by different rules. Love
Mm-hmm.
it. So when you think about some of those different rules, what would you say is like your top one or two rules that you would tell women they need to be aware of when playing the game in corporate and climbing that ladder, trying to get out of that manager director level into VP, EVP?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things to me, like when I think about this perception problem, one is ensuring that you're communicating in a really effective way. So I always talk about the 3 C's of communication: clear, concise, compelling. Because so many people get stuck there. It's super simple, but it's like simple is not easy. So when you're sharing information, especially peers and up, prep for that. Pick your top 3 points and deliver it in like a concise way. So I find that that is really impactful in terms of like the way you're presenting. In terms of other rules, if I think back to like the mindset piece, which is the other element that can hold us back, I really think that focusing on self-awareness. I think so many people go through life and never really tap into true self-awareness. There's so many ways we can do that through a mindfulness practice, through regular reflection. Those were both things that really helped me. But certainly, like in my corporate career, creating a regular reflection practice where I was able to regularly say, like, how did this meeting go? Okay, it went well. Why did it go well? What did I do? Okay, I'm going to keep doing that. Or, hey, I pitched this idea to the management team and they asked me a bunch of questions and poked holes in it. It did not go the way I thought it was going to. Why was that? What could I have done better? When we start to create that habit in our life, we are just going to naturally get better and better, and learn from our own experience. I've heard a quote that was like, we don't learn from our mistakes, or we don't learn from our experience. We learn from reflecting on our experience. I was like, that is so powerful. It's so true.
It is, because otherwise we can just shove that way down deep and never revisit it again.
Totally. We could just keep making the same mistake over and over, which I have done, right? Like,
yeah, but
most of the stuff I've learned is like trial and error.
Right. And sometimes you have to learn it a few times. But I love this because it's almost like you're saying put together this pre-mortem with making sure that your communication and your talking points are very clear and concise and compelling, and then creating the post-mortem to say, was I clear, concise, and compelling? Did it really come through the way I intended it? And did my impact land? So I think that's perfect, perfect, perfect. I love it. It's gold. Katy, when you think back to your sticky floor, right, the limiting beliefs, toxic behaviors that you experienced in corporate that kept you stuck, I mean, you talk a lot about mindset, you talk a lot, kind of about mindfulness. Where did that show up in your life?
Yeah. So when I think about this specific time in my career where I was at a company for 8.5 years, I was a director for 5 of those years, trying to get to that next level. I made a lot of mistakes. Okay. So I've got a plethora to pull from. But one of them was, if I think about just not putting enough intention into how I was presenting myself. So let me explain. The CEO that I was working for, I had known this guy by the end, like by the time I left, I'd known him for 15 years. He reached out and like recruited me to come work for this company and build a sales and marketing org. And so I had that level of trust already. And I think that I almost like rested on my laurels a little bit. I was like, this guy thinks I'm the best, so I don't need to try to impress him. And I'm kind of generalizing. Of course, I wanted to impress him, but I would go into meetings with him and be like, "Ooh, like I want to talk about some ideas." Where, like now, me looking back, that is not the way to get promoted, right? Instead, I should have been preparing my idea, thinking about how I wanted to present it to him, going into that meeting and taking it more seriously. A lot of my life, I had spent winging things, and that worked for me in high school. And it kind of worked for me in university, although I had to learn to study. But then my career was in sales, and I was pretty good at like winging meetings. I had never put a lot of time into like intentionally prepping for things. And when I got to a leadership team, I realized like this is not working for me anymore. I need to like slow down and put more intention into the things I'm doing. So that was one of them for sure. Another one was that definitely my mindset where I felt intimidated by the people on the team. And initially coming in, it was like ignorance was bliss and I was sharing my ideas. But as I wasn't getting promoted at the rate that I wanted to, I started to really question myself. And in this period of my life, a couple of things happened. I was also in a very toxic, like abusive relationship. And then I was in this work situation where I was constantly being told, you're not there yet. I'm not sure if you're even like ready, ever going to be a VP. And so all of this really took a toll on my confidence, where towards the end of that, like I knew I wasn't showing up as my best self, but I just could not, like, I did not know how to fix it at that point. Right. I was kind of beat down, I would say. And so what I needed at that point was a fresh start. Like I was talking about this with a group of women yesterday, where sometimes we can get into a space where things haven't been going our way. We start to get into like a bit of a negative mindset, like almost like a downward spiral that we cannot get out of. And when that happens, you need to shift your mindset, but you can't always do that where you are. Like sometimes the environment you're in is not conducive to making that shift. And so that was something that took me too long to realize, I would say, right? I wish that, well, I don't wish anything because it was all a blessing in the end. It was all a great learning, but I probably spent longer than I needed to in that role. I felt like I was banging my head against the wall every day. And one thing I think is like, it shouldn't be that hard. Mm-hmm. Right? When I moved into my new VP role, I was really successful in that role. I enjoyed my job more and it felt easier. Right? Whereas I had been like doing the grind for years and years before. It just felt so hard every day. So I was just in this, again, I was stuck in this space where I almost felt that I wasn't allowed to leave until I accomplished my goal. Like I was like, I can't leave. I haven't like made it happen yet. And so I was just putting myself through torture for a lot longer than I needed to, when I probably could have just said like, maybe like, is this situation serving me? You know, I've been in this position for X amount of time. Is this really where I want to be? And maybe I would have admitted like, no, it's not. You know, I think I need to take my chances somewhere else.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got this boss who's like, I don't know if you're ever going to be a VP. Like, damn, that is the GTFO like sign right there, because
yeah,
that person does not have a growth mindset, right? That person, it's not even saying that they don't believe in you, but they could have approached that with this, I don't think you're ever going to be a VP if you continue on like this. Mm-hmm. However, these are the actionable things you need to do.
Well, and this is something that I tell people now, if you're thinking about, you know, should I stay or should I go? If there's no path for you where you are, if your manager isn't able to say, okay, this is what you need to work on to get here. I was getting feedback, but it was vague. It was, you need to be more strategic. And I, at that time, like, did not know what that meant.
Yeah, what the hell does that mean, you know?
Oh, I was Googling, like, what is strategic? I'm like, I think I know, but clearly I don't. I'm like buying books. Like,
yeah.
I think I bought like at least like 3 or 4 books about like good strategy, bad strategy, or strategic thinking or whatever, because I'm like, clearly I'm not doing the thing. And so there wasn't really, you know, a tangible path for me that, okay, I know I need to do this, this, and this in order to get to that next level.
I was interviewing Deb Liu yesterday, who is the CEO of Ancestry. She is the woman who created Facebook Marketplace. And she has a story in her book, which is called Take Back Your Power. And it's about, she had this dream job at Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg did not give it to her, not once, but twice. And I was like, Deb, how how did you even stick around after that? Because I would have like crawled under my desk and never come back out. And, she talked about, yes, it was hard, but in the way that Mark presented this to her, he was like, you are so much better and stronger and made for other things that, like, I don't want you to keep doing this same thing, you
Wow.
know? So I love this whole should I stay or should I go concept because, like, had that been me, I probably been gone, right? Like,
Oh yeah, I know. And like hindsight's 2020. In retrospect though, because I learned so much reporting to this person. Like he was a hard boss in a lot of ways. I never got that position that I wanted. And like to be clear, there was no VP above me. Like there was like I reported right to the CEO. So I couldn't get the title even without like it was an empty.
right. It wasn't like there was somebody that had to leave.
Yeah. So but I really feel that experience, although in a lot of ways, like I had some stuff to deal with from like a mindset perspective, like it did knock me down. It also really like leveled me up from a skill perspective. So like when I finally got that VP role, I was like, this is easy, right? Because I had learned so much in this role. And I think that there's also an element sometimes when you are at the same place for a long time, someone's known you for a long time. Like I mentioned, that CEO had known me from the very beginning of my career. You can grow a lot and people can still look at you as the person you were when you joined.
Yeah, they can't see
Right?
you any other way.
There's some truth to that, right? And so sometimes if you want to get to that next level, you do need to go take your talents elsewhere where you're coming in fresh. They don't know you and you can step in as that VP or as that C-suite exec on day one.
A fresh start, a fresh perspective. Don't be afraid to walk away from something that isn't serving you, which leads me to my next question, because here you are rocking it out as an EVP. And we're not doing that anymore. Now we have our own business. We're bringing women into positions of power, making them all executives. Walk me through that transition.
Yeah, it's ironic, right? Like I spent like 15 years it took me to get my first VP position. Then I moved into an EVP position, which was also like a great supportive company. Like both of those roles were wonderful. And so this was what I learned. I got to this EVP position. I'm like, my life is perfect and I am miserable. So this was, a burnout event that I went through, which I think had to do one with just overworking myself for years and years and years. But the second is that I actually was no longer aligned with what I was doing. And oftentimes burnout has a lot more to do with not being aligned than it does with how many hours you're working. And so like, I really, I always say like real burnout, you're not going to fix that with a week in Mexico. Like it is like no joke. And so that is what I went through, where I was just feeling really fragile and negative and unhappy. And, I was like, what the heck? Like what's going on here? And so I took a bit of time. I mean, I was still working, but like I took a few days and started to just explore, like, what do I really want in life? And I think I'd been after that goal for so long, I had not stopped to ask myself, what do I actually want my life to look like? Probably ever, right? I had just been going and pursuing like what was next. And so for the first time, probably in my whole career, since being 25 and deciding I one day wanted to be a VP, I took some time to think like, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my days to look like? What do I want my impact to be? And I realized that there was elements of being an executive that I really enjoyed, but the things that drove me the most were the mentorship, helping other women. I had been on a board, like a nonprofit, Women Powering Technology. That was the stuff that made me want to jump out of bed in the morning, not my day-to-day job. And so that was a pretty harsh reality for me because I had spent so long building this career and I had a lot of fear around leaving it in terms of my ego, my own, will I be important in the world if I'm not an executive anymore? Will anyone even care about me? And like, that's the stuff that like, usually we don't say out loud.
Yeah.
But those
right?
are like inner fears, right? We've got these inner fears of like, who am I if I am not Katy, the corporate person.
Corporate Katy.
Corporate Katy. And as soon as I allowed myself to start to think about like, what could my days look like? Like, what if I did actually start my own business? Like, what could that look like? It was like, I couldn't unsee it. You know, it's like, once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I was like, I think I need to quit my job. So I ended up making that decision. It was a really hard decision, but the best one, because I now really feel like I'm living my purpose.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I have already cyber stalked you, done all the things, but tell everybody here, I mean, you've got an executive presence course they can take. You've got a whole, like, you've got master classes galore. Tell us how people can work with you.
Yeah. My big goal is like demystifying what it takes to get to senior leadership, breaking it down, making it simple, also building communities. So some of the stuff that people can do with me, I do have a master executive presence digital course, which is like a self-paced course that anyone can do at any time. I really try to, again, break it down, make it super simple, super digestible, because executive presence is one of these like, evasive, vague things that people aren't quite sure how to develop. So I just make it easy for them. I also have a free masterclass coming up on January 9th, which is the top 3 things that hold women back from a seat at the table. So I talk about, what do I see that holds women back today? It's an interactive masterclass. So like, you get a little workbook and you can work through and be like, what's holding me back? Like, does this resonate with me? Does that? So people should definitely sign up for that, because it's totally free. And there's a couple different time slots they can choose. And at the end of that, I talk about my group program, which also launches a little bit later in January. My group program is like near and dear to my heart. When I was a director and I was stuck, I think back and I was like, what was the exact thing I wish I had? And then that's what I created as my group program. So it's like an accelerator to like help you get to that next level. And it combines, structured curriculum, group coaching, and then a community of women. And so every single week you get a chance to connect with other women who are in the same boat as you. I just wrapped up one of my groups yesterday, and it's like, it is just, it's such a special experience to be part of that community of women. So those are the ways that people can work with me. So
which is perfect, because we're heading into 2024. Everybody's going to have goals that they're trying to get after. So perfect timing. And Katy, I've got one last question for you. It's my favorite one to ask. If you could go back in time to corporate Katy who's stuck, what would be the one piece of advice you would give her?
The big thing I would tell her is, you belong at the table. If you want that seat at the table, you deserve it just as much as anyone else. And the stuff you need to do to get there is learnable. That would be the thing I would tell her.
Yes, all that is so true. Katy, thank you so much. This was such a fun and awesome conversation. I feel like we could go on for a whole nother hour.
It was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Y'all, Katy is not only a badass, but an inspiration. She is a woman who not only conquered the corporate climb, but is taking it further by empowering women and helping them land that leadership role. So y'all know she is my kind of girl. So make sure that you check out her free masterclass. I will be there in attendance because I know that it is going to be amazing. So until next time, I hope you have a fantastic day, and please head on down, rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already, because it truly lands in the hands of the woman who needs to hear it the most.